I spent the last month fixing up a vintage Yamaha snowmobile. It's a Venture XL, a VT480, and I wanted to document everything I've done to it so far for future reference. One of the first things I did was repair the cable that holds the cowl. I just had to recrimp it down there by the muffler. There was a bungee cord holding the battery in, and the battery's not the standard one for this sled, so I had to use a piece of strapping instead of the original battery holder. The belt on the fan was way too loose and a little cracked, so I put a new belt on that and got it tensioned properly. There was a bungee cord holding the oil tank in, so I drilled out the bolt and put a slightly larger bolt in there after tapping it for the right size. The transmission has had its oil changed. There was no metal in the oil, so I put new gear oil in there. The brake cable here, this part right here was all rusted, so I actually had to soak it in some hydrochloric acid to strip all the rust off it and got it freed up and working again. The brake lever wasn't working properly. You couldn't set the parking brake with that little tab there because there wasn't enough slack in the cable. So the brakes are actually working, but just not adjusted right. So I got that all freed up and working properly again. The shift knob here was bent, so I straightened the bend in the knob, bend in the shaft, and drilled out the sleeve that it slides down into. So now that's working good again. The backup alarm didn't work, so I shot some WD-40 in there and tapped on it with a hammer and eventually got it to start working. The steering was really loose. There's a little ball joint down there at the end of the steering shaft, and the bolt on it was loose, so it was quite a job to get down in there without pulling the whole motor and get that tight. But I used a wrench and a tube and a flashlight and a magnet holder and was able to get the open end wrench on the nut and get it tightened up. Put all new cotter pins in all the steering and got everything all lubed up. So the steering is nice and tight and works really smooth now. The plastic ski skins were both replaced. This one isn't too bad, but the other one was completely broken in half. The whole front half was missing. So it's bolted on with the wear bar, and then I also added an extra bolt at the front and at the back just to keep it secure. It's got new LED lighting in all the gauges and all the lights. So the bright here, all the gauges, the headlight, the LED lights for the fuel and oil, and the rear LED light. The rear light have all been replaced with LEDs. One of the heaters in the right hand grip here wasn't working, so I found a pair of handlebars on eBay, and it's off a different year snowmobile, but it got on there just fine and works just fine. So now it's got 4 heated hand grips, and actually 5 if you count the thumb grip. So everything's been lubed up, all the pivot points have been lubed. The primary and secondary sheaves were lubricated with dry moly in the appropriate locations. Went through the track and I put all new clips on the track. There were 49 metal clips missing from the track, like 29 on this side and 20 on the other side. So I had to buy a special tool in order to crimp the track clips on. I used black shoe glue to repair all the parts of the track that were missing. Stuff is incredibly tenacious. I installed new ice scrapers to make sure the track stays lubricated when there's no powdery snow. And a lot of other little tweaks here and there. I got new spark plugs and I adjusted the carburetors. So I'm going to start it up. This is a cold start. I haven't started it in about a week. So I'm going to give it a little choke here. Little throttle. So I'm pretty happy with how it turned out, but we'll see how she runs when the snow gets here, and I hope that doesn't happen anytime soon.